So
what's the t-shirt? So?
it's this metal band I've seen. What the heck are they called again? I went to this death metal gig actually recently, and I saw this band. It was really cool. I'm thinking in the shop, but we'll make a start right now. I'll just clamp my hand, and that'll be us officially started. I think we're in the shot. Yeah, you're perfect in the shot. I should be in that shot. But anyway, so let's start. So welcome to the Hats Off Here Down podcast, episode number 6. We're joined by Duncan Mountain. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast.
Absolutely. Not got band on this time. You usually find you get the odd bands, but today slightly differently.
Yeah.
You're a promoter, anti-promoter, PR.
Yeah, so main role I would say is probably a promoter. I do a little bit of booking on the side now, but mainly I would say a promoter, yeah.
That's cool, right? And you used to play in bands, is that right? You saying that?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably how I started promoting really. So back in the day, probably about a decade ago now, I was in a band called Glacier, which came to kind of like a halt maybe kind of 3 years ago or something. And just like, a lot of bands, traditionally would have just gone to a local promoter and got some shows and things like that. And then we had a bit of a gap where we didn't play for like maybe 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew we were coming back, and I was a bit more kind of experienced at this point with gigs and stuff. And I kind of knew the bands that I was going to be playing a gig with, so I just, instead of going to a promoter and asking can we play a show, I just organised the shows myself.
That's awesome.
And that was kind of the beginning, I would say, of Red Crust.
It wasn't festival. Yeah.
It wasn't not so much the festival, but
from the Crust Promotions.
Yeah, the first couple of gigs, Red Crust were always meant to be just putting on my own bands, and then I think I got talking to a couple of friends, as you do about the gigs that are coming up, and they were saying to me, "Are you promoting now?" And I ended up helping out a band from Newcastle called Geist, who actually just put on this weekend. You went and saw this weekend.
We just saw them. They were week there.
And that was my 150th show that Red Crust has been involved in, and
that's amazing, isn't it? 150.
Yeah. So over 5 years as well. So
you get to 200. Celebrate at 200.
Yeah, I would definitely expect to get to 200 maybe in the end of 2023 or something. But yeah, basically just put on shows to help my friends' bands out, and my own band, because I just started another band as well called Cold Master.
Yeah, I've actually heard of that band as well. Of course, I've seen them quite a while back now.
I'm not really neither. I think Cold Master, as far as I know, is still going. Although they haven't played in a while, but I'm not part of either of those bands anymore. But that's definitely how Red Crust started, and then just from that the ball got rolling.
The ball got rolling. Yeah. I swear I must remember the first of a gig was the first of a gig that I could recall was in Leaf Depot.
Leaf Depot, yeah.
That was it. I'm sure I can recall that one.
So I got the Leaf Depot because it was just recommended at the time by a friend, but. The gig I was putting on was relatively last minute, and it was probably the only venue that was free. The more kind of popular venues you might say in Edinburgh, like Legends, the Banished Labyrinth, Banners. I'm pretty sure at the time they were all taken, so I ended up getting the Leeds Depot, which in the end actually worked out really well because it's quite a small venue, and the amount of people that turned up to see the show was pretty much just.
I'm sure I remember that. I'm pretty sure you had Geist on again that time as well. Was that?
It was Geist and a band from America called Sunlight Spain, and I think the thing that kind of surprised me about it was because they were from America, I just assumed it'd be a very expensive band.
Yeah.
And then when my friend told me the price of what it would cost to put them on, I didn't think it was very much. So I just thought, I'll just put them on because of my friends' bands. If I lose a bit of money, it's not a problem type thing.
Yeah, so if you have to cancel last minute, for example.
Yeah, I would never have cancelled, but let's say it didn't turn out very well. it wouldn't have been the end of the world, I might have lost 50 quid or something like that. But in the end, actually, it was a complete sellout and it did really well.
That was great. I'm sure the person on the sales saw that was like really busy that one.
Yeah. So able to pay the bands a bit more and stuff like that. So, more than cover costs. So, that was a great first kind of gig. Then you're following that up with a bunch of gigs with your own bands, which are essentially cost free. From a pressure perspective, you don't have to worry too much about that. And then from there, you get a few bands get in touch who are a bit bigger from down south, and then that's where it starts.
Yeah, right. We come from the north or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how quickly it picks up actually if you start doing it. If you do a half decent job in promotions, people get in touch and they start putting on stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. So I think we should go through a T-shirt question then.
Yeah.
What you got on? You got the mighty dog tied, haven't you? I see.
Oh yeah. So dog tied. One of the side things of doing promotions is you inevitably end up meeting other promoters, you end up meeting other managers and things like that.
Yeah.
And you end up doing a little bit of it for yourself as well. You end up representing a few bands. So I've just recently booked like a weekend tour for Dog Tired down south.
Yeah.
And I've already got some other dates for them lined up for next year and things in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm helping them out with booking, and usually when I'm doing a fairly big show in Edinburgh, they're involved. So they played the 2 festivals I did this year.
Yeah, they were playing their way Crust Festival this year.
And they've got the Ram Fest, which is the Student Union Metal Festival, in a couple of weeks' time.
Lots of metal bands playing that day as well.
Yeah,
isn't it? It's going to be
it's really good.
Were you going to start with one day as well?
Extort, yeah. So like probably Edinburgh's best new band.
Yeah.
Obviously you had them on the podcast.
I had them on the podcast. Yeah, they were so good. I really think that was the most big podcast actually on the channel.
Yeah.
Alright. So I think it's getting up to like 500 views now.
Oh, well, this will be there.
It's still 1K. That'll be a hot topic then. I'll do a hot topic then when it gets to 1K.
That's it.
Because I got them on quite early on in the podcast. I think maybe I'm not sure. They were saying I think they've been a band for a while, haven't they, or something?
I think they've just been a band since the pandemic, as far as I know.
Yeah.
Or at least they got started just before the pandemic. Then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
There's a few bands like that, but it's not too many.
But they're very got out there a bit now as well, especially when they played last time, and they're playing again at Manfest, and they've got this other one, Ukrainian one, going on, isn't there?
Yeah, I think I remember it's a day after a gig that I was doing, but my gig got cancelled. So I know it's like the 26th of November. It's a charity gig for just the Ukrainian war effort, just giving it to some charities in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So everybody should go to that because it's a good
good amount going in there.
Will you be going to that?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Therefore, because I need to see it start again. And, they're playing again. They're playing a few times in the next few months.
Yeah.
November.
Well, I've got them this Sunday at the Halloween Havoc as well.
Yeah, they'll be getting dressed up then.
So that should be fun.
You getting dressed up for that?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a last minute kind of Amazon purchase the other day because I realised I had nothing that fit me. Because I'm just getting too fat. So
you just get something now then?
Yeah, so I've got something on order from Amazon which should just arrive tomorrow. So looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that. Hope so. What's it?
Yeah, so I'll be going as Luigi
Luigi
Mario.
Yeah.
Because it was the only suit I could find that was double XL, so I just knew it would fit me.
So you may have the Mario cat or something.
Yeah. So
bring his cat as well.
That'll be it. Yeah.
That's so cool. Maybe the bands would get dressed up for that gig, for example.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be some prizes on offer for the best dressed, person at the show. I'll probably give away some free gig tickets, maybe even a bit of an access for somebody, for like a bit of a, maybe a multiple gigs or something. And I'm sure the bands will be on offer with giving some merchandise and all that stuff. So there'll be a few prizes up for grabs.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you sell some merchandise as well, don't you? Like the White Crust Festival t-shirts.
Yeah, well, I can't really take credit for that, but when we did the festival,
when we did some t-shirts, isn't there?
Yeah, in the run-up, you know, I was running around like a headless chicken for months before the festival, and my friend Billy Junior, who runs Scapegoat, he's very handy with kind of artwork and merchandise and all that kind of stuff. So he did a run for me doing the shirt. He pretty much organised all of it and then pretty much sold it on the day too. So,
that's so cool.
Big thanks to Billy for that.
Because I see him as well, doing the thing as well, doing the door sometimes.
Yeah.
You sometimes do that as well. You know, it's sometimes you're kind of working together as a collegiate unit as well.
Well, I would say, you know, when you're a promoter, you inevitably do a lot of things on your own. You know, you're often booking bands and making decisions and booking venues and all that kind of stuff. But it's impossible to do everything by yourself. You have to get art people involved. You have to get
exactly.
you know, people who help you with the door on things.
Like helping hands and that.
Yeah, when I did the festival, you know, I had six helpers, give or take. You know,
Yeah.
So you do need help from time to time.
I can do it next year.
Yeah, you can do it next year if you want.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting segue.
Yeah.
We won't be doing it next year. I can tell you when we're doing it.
When?
So, for those people who don't know, have like a festival called Red Crust Festival. And this year it was in May, and it was a pretty well attended event.
Yeah, I was at it as well. Of course.
I think, you know, there's a greater problem in the industry right now, but obviously the cost of living stuff is all kind of kicking in, and we're seeing a lot of festivals go south, you know, just get disrupted or get cancelled, etc. I decided that because Red Crust Festival is so reliant on local bands, and we had 40 local bands, give or take, you know, maybe not as much as that, but maybe like 35, something like that. I felt like there wasn't enough quality to kind of pull off a bigger festival straight away. Because I noticed that a lot of people who I was asking behind the scenes, do you think you'd be ready for a gig or whatever? A lot of people were saying, oh, they don't know where the band's at right now, or the band's not active, things like that. And some of the headliners I asked about were not able to do it, but maybe you could do it later on. So at the moment, there'll be no big festival in 2023, but there should be a festival in 2024. And it'll be earlier in the year as well. I would say the problem of this year's Red Crust Festival, for both myself as the promoter and for people who were going to it, like you, from further afield, was accommodation. So accommodation in Edinburgh, you know, at the best of times is super expensive.
So it's quite sad in that as well to do something.
And because it was in May, and it was like a holiday May weekend, you know, every single hotel room in Edinburgh was just booked up. It was just so expensive to book. So even if you really wanted to come to the festival and you were fine with the price, you know, it was only 25 quid I think for the early bird. You know, lots of people said they couldn't come just because they couldn't afford the hotels or whatever to stay for 3 nights. And I totally get that, because that was a massive problem for me, because I had to book a lot of hotels for bands and stuff. So I'm going to put it earlier in the year next time, maybe on a less fashionable weekend, maybe something like March. So it's going to be probably in March. Probably the first or last weekend in March in 2024, probably.
It's quite a long way off it enough soon. So.
And I'll probably, you know, be talking to the venues soon about kind of booking that, and I'll probably have some of the headliners in place probably a year out to announce. So, you know, I would expect an announcement on the next festival to be in early 2023, and that's an exclusive right there for you now.
That's like literally like Downward Festival announcing their first bands for next year, you know. And now we get the first band announced too. That's right.
The second festival I did, which was cancelled because of the pandemic, I announced the first headliner a year out for that one.
Did you?
And you know, I always thought that was really good, because that just means people put it in their diary, they buy the early bird ticket, things like that. So, Any
idea who that was then?
At the time, so the second festival was a band from America called Forming the Void. Who were, you know, just purely one of my own personal kind of favourite bands, really.
Have you had them before then?
No, I think that would have even been like almost like their debut UK booking, but it just never happened.
So it never materialised
because it got cancelled, and then we rescheduled the festival, and then that got cancelled because obviously the following year COVID was still an issue. So 2 years in a row it got cancelled. And then I think to stop kind of messing people, I didn't want to mess people around or anything. I just cancelled that one completely, rather than trying to roll it over for a third year type thing. And then I just started from scratch. So I just got a completely different lineup. For the last one. So there's actually, even though I've organised the lineups of 4 festivals, I've actually only ever done 2. Which is kind of crazy to say out loud, but that's just how it is, sadly, because of the pandemic.
Well, maybe in 2024 will be bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Hopefully the last one went really well. I think there was a few of the festivals that went a bit dodgy around that time. So you had a Manifest down south, and that guy, that was the same weekend as mine. And that was cancelled about a week out.
So you went up to that one then.
And then you had like Dominion Festival in Durham, which was moved, and the Revolution Festival that was in Sheffield got moved to Manchester and was maybe reduced a little bit. Just to kind of make it more viable.
It's like last minute things,
So it's been a really funny time in general for festivals and things like that. Obviously the big ones have been affected. Bloodstock and Download and these kind of things. They had to cancel. I'm going to Damnation next weekend, which is in Manchester.
And next weekend.
That was probably the first big festival I went to last year that was actually going ahead, really. So we've only really had a year at it where festivals and gigs and stuff have been fairly normal. Without pandemic issues and stuff like that. There's still, every now and then you still get a COVID cancellation or something, or a reschedule that didn't work very well the second time around for whatever reason. Cost of living is also caused a big problem with festivals and
because that's going up at the moment.
Fuel costs and just general, everything is just more expensive because of that. So eating on the road is more expensive, accommodation is more expensive. So all these things kind of add up for some festivals, and they get cancelled.
They get cancelled like last minute as well, things like that. And you look forward to all these things.
If your budget is £100,000 or something, and you're not even halfway there, you're going to lose a lot of money. So you see why these things get cancelled,
because all the cost of the bands and that as well.
Bands, venue, accommodation, food, logistics. My festival is all indoors.
Usually.
The buildings have toilets. The buildings, have infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. When you start from scratch and put something in a field, you've got to get portaloos in. That costs money. You've got to get food in. You've got to get drinks in. It's a nightmare, really.
And you think it would ever happen? Do you think?
Would I ever do it?
Some might do it.
If you ever see me trying to organise an outdoor festival, I've lost the plot and you can get me sectioned.
It's just a way of protecting pretty much as well, all that.
I think the way I would see it is like, if you think of UK festivals that are indoor, so you've got Desert Fest is a really big festival for the kind of bands that I work with. And that's over 3 or 4 venues.
So that's like how
a bit like how Red Crust is, but obviously a lot bigger. A lot bigger. I think the Roundhouse in London is something like 5,000 capacity. It's a lot of people. And I think Damnation in Manchester, I think is something like 8,000 capacity, give or take.
That's a bit.
And when you think like a festival like say Bloodstock, is about 15,000 people or something. Until you're really kind of filling an arena. Worth of people, like Damnation is maybe. Why do you need to go outside?
Because then we see the Bloodstock inside as well.
But I mean, maybe Bloodstock would struggle to be inside, but
well, it's good keeping it outdoors anyway. Bloodstock.
For me personally, unless you're getting absolutely thousands of people along, there's not really a good reason to go outside. Especially imagine doing a a festival in Scotland and the weather being bad or something.
Yeah.
You'd have to get that timing would have to be perfect as well.
Because it could be right up at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, the weather was okay around my festival, but the year before that it was terrible. So you can imagine that being outside. That would have been really, really horrible.
Game over.
Yeah.
About other festivals, a lot of the lands as well.
I think a lot of the lands, as far as I know, it's not cancelled. It just never
materialised.
It just never got going. But
because they've been off for a while, haven't they?
Well, I mean, the guy who runs it, he owns Mark Hamilton Hunter. He owns probably 4 or 5 venues in Scotland. Has his own massive, promotions company who puts on a lot of really good death metal stuff. So if you like Nile playing in Glasgow in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's a Cryptosis and things like that. So he's put a lot of like really good death metal stuff on. And obviously he's got his nightclubs that he's got. So he's probably a busy guy. He's maybe the timing isn't right, but I'm sure Lords of the Land will return.
I hope so. Yeah. Next year.
I'm sure it will.
They should do more like a death metal festival. See when I was at this band here, I saw this at a death metal. There was a death metal gig happening at the Wee Red Bar a few weeks ago. Did you hear about that?
I think so. Yeah. I think
there was a band called what are they called again? Was it Penny Coffin?
Oh yeah.
Who else was it again? Actually not familiar. There was this other band from Edinburgh, I think.
Yeah, the death metal stuff's really.
It was very experienced.
I think like a lot of styles of music in Scotland, in particular, especially with local bands, not so much touring bands, but local bands. You just kind of get dips and troughs of how popular it is at the time. And it's more down to a couple of bands doing well.
Yeah.
And I think, well, especially in Scotland, Glasgow right now has some really good death metal bands going on the go.
Yeah.
There's a few cropping up in Edinburgh too. And that maybe wasn't the case 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, because I've not really seen that many death metal bands playing.
And you could say the same about for me, like a lot of my early successes were involved in like really good doom bands from Edinburgh, like Kingwitch and Juniper Grave. But Juniper Grave have essentially split up for now. I think.
I'm pretty sure.
And Kingwitch are waiting. They're going to get a new drummer and stuff. So years ago, doing a really big doom gig would have been very easy in Edinburgh, and now it's maybe not as easy.
Yeah.
So sometimes just certain scenes of music have good spells and bad spells.
Exactly. Like Kingwitch, I haven't seen them for ages. I think they only played like one gig this year or something.
Yes, they did. It was March. It was the first.
I'm pretty sure that was like the first time.
It was exactly. I did that in Legends, and it was a sold-out show, and it was really good.
Yeah.
But the band have just had, they've had a few issues with like personnel and all that kind of stuff. But they'll get back to it, I'm sure.
I used to know Jamie from guitar. He used to work in that store for quite a while, wasn't he?
Yeah, great.
So we sort of met that when we met there as well. Jamie, who's it? Jamie Gilchrist, isn't it?
Jamie and Laura, who are a married couple. They're obviously the main two kind of people, and then you've got Rory from the Solar Sons, who's the bass player.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then I think Lyle's just left the drummer, so they're looking for a new drummer. I'm assuming unless they've already got one. But they'll be back, I'm sure. They're a cracking band, so.
Yeah, because Lyle plays in another band, isn't he? Sapien or something.
He's not in Sapien, as far as I know. Because they've got a different drummer too.
Well, he used to play in one of the bands.
I think he used to play in Sapien, yeah.
Yeah, he used to play in that band as well. That's how I've seen it. So he's in is he in other bands now then?
I actually don't know. I'm not sure.
Because I've not seen these bands for ages. Kingwitch and Sapien. I think Sapien played.
I put Sapien on a gig.
They played.
The Primitive Man. And that was another really good one in Legends. It didn't sell, but it was close to selling out.
Yeah.
That was a cracking gig. It was a really good gig.
Yeah, I think I've seen that. I'm not sure if I was at that one. I can't remember. I know I've heard of Primitive Man, but I'm not sure if I was at that gig or not. That's the thing. Because Sapien. Who else was at playing that gig?
Oh, I also can't remember. I'm really bad for remembering names.
I'm quite bad as well. What else was it I was going to say? Until it comes to my mind again. it's went out of my mind again. I was saying about who was it again? I saw there's another doom metal band that used to be around in Edinburgh, Atagon or something.
Atagon, yeah. So that was a band between a bunch of people who, as far as I know, are fairly fragmented off around the country and things. So one of them works and lives down near London or something like that.
Okay.
And Ewan Cameron, who's the bass player, used to put on a lot of shows before. I put on shows a bit more in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So he used to run a promotions company called Crust Promotions.
Okay.
And he definitely put on a lot of the Doom stuff before I did, for sure. But he hasn't done it for years now.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I must have seen it actually going a long time ago. That's a long time. They haven't played in a long time, haven't they not?
I'm not too sure if they're active anymore.
Yeah. Because I knew I met the guitarist because he used to study at the college I was at as well.
Yeah, it's a shame because the gigs were always good. So we could do with a few more bands like that again.
Yeah, like Naxagon and more doom metal bands. Madden at Electric Wizard.
Like in Red Crust is kind of known, I think, more for that kind of style now.
Yeah.
Even though I am a genuine fan of like a lot of styles of metal and things, but that seems to be kind of like a niche that
it's got post metal within that, right?
Yeah. So I don't think it's because I particularly looked for these bands or anything.
Yeah.
But it's a mixture of there being good local bands that got me started, and then maybe that world or that scene of bands has kind of got in touch because they've seen that from afar. It's a bit like when I did the Winter Warmer Festival this year with Party Cannon. Really big kind of death metal slam band in Scotland.
There was a good few bands during that time, Catalysis and...
So that's the first time I'd ever really put a gig on of that style, really. And obviously it was a cracker and it was really, really good. But in the following weeks and the following months, straight away loads of bands of that style get in touch. Because they assume that you're either they want to play that festival or they're just interested in doing some shows. It's not that you don't want to put them on, but you can't put on everything that you get approached by.
It's always one foot in front of the other.
Like if I went on my email right now, I'd probably have a couple of bands asking straight away, if we do some gigs. So you do have to turn them down quite a lot. Because
there's too much, there's not enough space for them, so they have to come on the next time or something.
This year I did about 50 shows, and for me that was like pretty close to the limit of what I can do, really.
Well, you've done a lot since
usually, for me, doing more than 30 gigs is probably a bit much. But obviously some of the big promotions companies in Glasgow and stuff like that, they do hundreds.
Definitely. I don't even know what they do in Glasgow, what bands play there. There must be there's a lot of bands from Glasgow play Edinburgh, isn't there?
Yeah, but they're mainly touring bands, I would say. So, whereas Red Crust, obviously like a lot of promotions companies, it starts off doing local shows, but over time there's kind of gradually start putting on touring bands a bit more.
I noticed you get some bands from America, so the last time you had, was it Wounded who the club last time you played? I know you had Scalpel and at Start and you had the band from the United States. Who were they called again?
Wounded Touch,
they were very good.
But some of the big promotions companies in Glasgow, things like that, you've got Triple G, you've got Hamilton Hunter, you've got DF Concerts, those kind of big, those really big kind of companies. Those guys are like, they're really professional and they're putting on like, 100 shows a year type thing, like absolutely tons,
I've heard of Triple G, are they the ones that put on the bigger gigs?
I think if you've been to some big metal gigs in Glasgow, you've more than likely been to one of their shows.
I've heard of Triple G.
You will have. You'll have gone to quite a few of them.
So they probably put on then Concerts Engage and no doubt they would Farewell to Square and
those kind of gigs tend to get put on by Triple G, Hamilton Hunter, DF Concerts, maybe even Live Nation and through somebody like maybe King Tut's or something,
Yeah.
You get those kind of gigs. So, yeah.
It's usually Ticketmaster normally or Ticket Scotland, or sometimes, I don't know if that's like the ticket.
I think that's more just the ticket thing, yeah.
Yeah, because they normally do that, don't they? It's usually Ticket Scotland or...
Ticket Scotland list gigs on behalf of promoters, but they also do put up posters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they're making money off the ticket when you buy a ticket.
Yeah.
So it's in their interest as well to sell tickets, you know.
So maybe, like, for example, if Frames were playing Edinburgh, they would have been sold by Ticketmaster or Tickets.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the vast majority of
bigger gigs,
bigger gigs go on in Glasgow, but you do get the occasional big gig in Edinburgh too.
Yeah, Wicked Rooms usually.
Wicked Rooms, the bells, things like that, and then even the Corn Exchange, which I think is now the O2 something like that. Yeah.
They have like the West Wind shows there every so often, and I go to the West Wind, like Discovery West Wind and stuff like that. Normally have their West Wind shows there every so often, so normally I tend to the West Wind shows. It's always a good thing that I really enjoy. I like my wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So there's other creative in them too, kind of, and it's a good venue for it, and everyone's off their feet sometimes.
Well, are they not doing a show this Sunday? Is there not a wrestling thing on this Sunday? Is that what I mentioned?
It's actually a couple of weeks actually.
Oh yeah.
Discovery Wrestling are putting them on.
Because this Sunday I'm doing a show in Glasgow. They've just named Halloween Havoc.
Is that?
But I took the the name from a WWE pay-per-view. So from back in the day. So I think it was WCW, but there's a bit of a reference there to wrestling if you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah, get some wrestlers on, get some people dressing up. Maybe that's the point. And my schoolmates are wrestlers as well. We should maybe in the future in the podcast, wrestlers, bands, promoters, sound guys.
Absolutely, yeah.
Maybe that could be the ticket. Because I'm thinking about wrestlers to do it on the podcast in the future.
If I don't really know the name of whatever the Scottish wrestling company is, but I'm sure there's ICW. So I'm sure there'll be somebody in there that would be interested in talking to you.
Yeah, if they can get to Edinburgh and come, if they can get to this big premise,
Or you could go to their show.
Get
backstage interview or something.
Get Drew McIntyre or something, or Drew Galloway or something.
Yeah.
Rather than seeing him. Can interview some of the wrestlers in Discovery Wrestling as well.
That's it.
I think that's the whole point, eh? Yeah. Anything else you want to say then? Anything about bands again? Like maybe about what you do as well?
I think, no, not really. I think
I think you used to play guitar, don't you, as well?
All right, yeah. I haven't played in a band for a long time. It's not that I don't want to be in a band or anything. But in my personal life, I teach about 30 people a week guitar.
Yeah.
Every single student's an hour lessons, so there's quite a lot. And I've also got a very young family. I've got like 2 sons, things like that. And between that and doing all the promotion stuff that I do, I just haven't got a free moment. My time is taken up. And the last band I was in, Cultmaster, have nothing against those guys, and I really like them. And we're all, we're all good friends and stuff. But at the end of the day, I was struggling to get along to the band practices all the time.
Okay.
And especially when you're a promoter, you know what good bands do. You know that good bands practice once or twice a week.
Yeah.
The really good bands practice twice a week. And my I felt like I was letting down my bandmates. So instead of doing it kind of half-assed, I thought, I'll just leave the band because I'm not doing it properly.
Just focus on your promotion, and that's the point.
I'm not saying down the line I wouldn't do another band again, but right now I'm not that bothered personally.
Yeah.
But I might do in the future.
Yeah. It was actually a very long time ago actually, a week when I used to jam with Luke from Dog Tired a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
The old project never took off, but we were jamming, but didn't have a name for a band. It just came to my mind now that we actually did have a bit of history with Luke from Dog Tired. Myself as a guitarist and Luke as a guitarist, so we're playing together with this drummer. This drummer was like really cool as well, he was pretty tight.
Oh yeah.
The drummer was long story short, was the drummer packed in for us in that project. So I never really took off, but that was a really nice, that was a nice wee, it's a bit nice, that was a nice wee chance to jam with Luke from Dog Tides. And I know that he's got his other band and that side as well, which is slightly different. It's quite heavy as well.
Yeah, I really like those guys. Double guitar solos and stuff.
Yeah, like Matt
Justice,
and Jack. He's on the Perpetua as well.
Yeah.
He's in another band as well.
Again, just another band to.
It's like a project. Yeah.
Obviously, when they're gigging, it's great. I think they're not as active as maybe you would think, but
like Dog Tired is.
Yeah, but they're a great band, great bunch of guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the better sound. Matt Justice does the sound, isn't he?
Well, he's more the manager of LaBelle.
Yeah.
And Opium. Legend, sorry.
Yeah. He actually would have come along one day.
Yeah. Get Matt. Matt would have some interesting stories from his band days, I'm sure.
Because he's in the Exploited, wasn't he?
In the Exploited.
That's a big band, big punk band.
And I've only been in Edinburgh over the past decade, but there was a band called Man of the Hour as well that was quite a popular Edinburgh band as far as I know, in the kind of 90s, early 2000s, things like that.
Maybe one that I'm guessing that's not going any longer.
No, I don't think it's been
back in the days.
But every time I see the members of that band, I'm always pressing them to get the band back together. I'll probably want to gig.
Get a reunion going. That's a good point.
So a reunion is always good for gigs, attendance.
Exactly. Maybe like I know the band that I was actually thinking as well. 100-Year-Old Man. Did you get a special gig on them, didn't you?
Well.
100-Year-Old Man.
Where did you see them? Was that at the festival or was that just?
No, it was like a one-off gig you put on.
For
one of the members.
So that one. So that was so originally the plan behind that was it was going to be 100-Year-Old Man, and it was a band called Wren from London. Was it Wren? I can't remember. It was 100-Year-Old Man and somebody else. I can't remember who it was now. I think it was Wren actually, but I can't remember who it was. And they were going to do a tour. Sadly, one of the guitar players from 100-Year-Old Man really committed suicide, really. And sent shockwaves because everyone loved him and really respected musician and things like that. And obviously the gig was cancelled, or was going to be cancelled originally, and the bands couldn't really commit to it. But I thought, well, instead of cancelling it, let's expand it, make it like an all-day festival type thing. So we had about 10 bands playing, give or take.
I think I've heard about it as well as the start this year, wasn't it?
And then we just did donations on the door for charity, and then we donated that to a mental health charity, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But
I know at Disposable have done some like charity gigs as well. They did Cocoa Fest, didn't they?
We did around the Redcroft Festival. We do like a pre-show kind of night on the Thursday before the three main days.
I think I've actually been to the pre-show.
And that was a charity night for Press for Change.
You had like Hammer and that stuff. And
that was a really, really good show. So
because Hammer are pretty good as well. The band Hammer. It's Keith on Dog Tired and drums in that band, isn't it?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're looking for a new singer now.
Oh, because there's what's his name? Is he left the band?
Yeah, I think he's left the band for personal reasons and stuff.
What's his name again? The vocalist.
Matt.
Is he?
It's Matt. Yeah. So he's left the band. So as far as I know, they're looking for a vocalist. So any Edinburgh people want to join a metal band in Edinburgh,
Because they're quite groove metal, aren't they?
Would you do that, Chris? Could you do vocals? No.
Because they're quite high. He does a bit of high pitched squeals and that.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
But I'm not too fast. That's good. It's a good offer. I think they're good. Hammer are really good what they do as well.
Yeah.
They're like just heavy as well. We had them on the Winter Warmer.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And did you have Squad of Two as well? A band called Squad of Two.
Yeah, Squad of Two played the kind of the big Red Cross Festival.
Yeah, I saw them.
They
were so good as well.
They're kind of one of the stars of the Glasgow death metal scene right now. So it's doing very well. So
they're very good at it.
it's always good to have those, to get one of those bands involved. So that was they were definitely a highlight of the festival for some, I think.
Especially our late thing as well. That was one of my favourite. Well, it was a bit death metal in the mix as well.
Yeah.
He had that other band Chroma as well. Is it Keo? Is it Chroma? What they call it again? That electronic band. It's not like
Kuro.
Yeah.
Really cool guys. I put those guys on in Glasgow just after.
Because they're quite different, aren't they?
Quite early in the year, if I remember correctly, and it was just a great show in Glasgow.
It's quite dancey. It's quite electronic and industrial.
The problem, whenever you do a festival, you obviously learn from your mistakes from your festival and things.
Yeah.
To make it better for the next time. I think the problem with the first Red Crust Festival was that it was too. It probably reflected my own music taste a bit too much, but it was a bit too doom metal oriented. So you had 20 bands and probably about maybe 15, 16 of them were doom or stoner rock. That kind of thing.
So most of it was spending most of the time was those types of bands, but
so it got a little bit kind of samey maybe for some people's taste.
So obviously with this year's festival, it's been a bit of a different taste, like Negative Frequency.
Well, I said to myself, just the problem you've got with Scotland in general is there's not a great depth of every style. So if you wanted to put on a festival in Scotland with 40 death metal bands, it probably wouldn't be possible, I don't think, to have 40 bands of just Scottish death metal bands. So, same with doom, same with hardcore, etc. You name the style. There's not that many bands of that style, generally speaking.
No.
And the next Red Crust Festival is likely to have about 60 bands, give or take. So it's going to be a really big event.
So
I don't have the luxury of going kind of genre specific. So the next festival will have, not only will it have like some dancier metal stuff and some death metal and some thrash. It will likely have stuff that even the last festival didn't have. So for me, as long as it's heavy and it's kind of part of our world, you might say, I'm happy having it on the festival. And in general, Red Crust would put on pretty much anything that is kind of heavy, really.
As long as it's got 6 strings and 4 strings, that's it.
Exactly.
As long as it's got a guitar, bass and drums and long hair.
Exactly.
That's the point.
Don't about the long hair, but
I got long hair, grow at one time. That's another reason why the podcast is called The Hats Off Head Down, because it's putting your hair down.
Oh yeah.
At some point. I don't know if all the bands would consider doing it, but it's always a huge point.
I just had a haircut, so I'm
probably
getting on board with this idea, Chris.
I'm going to do it to other, maybe say if the other bands are up for doing it, then
that's it.
It could be the point. It could be a good point. I mean, it's not like it's not a hard thing to do. It's just to feel your head down.
Right. I used to have hair as long as you back in the day.
Yeah.
But
well, someone said to me like recently, actually, funny story, and there was a guy, I won't say his name, but he said to me like recently, he's called me out like almost like the guy from Soundgarden.
That's a big compliment. Yeah.
What's his name again? That's so bad. My memory's going to blank at the moment. What's his name again? Chris Cornell, right?
When I used to have long hair, people used to say I used to look like James May from Top Gear. So not as complimentary, really.
But he said I looked like Chris Cornell. That's what he said.
I would take that as a compliment, Chris.
Yeah, because I do look absolutely at the point he had a bit of hair this long. I'm sure he did. But yeah, he said that to me. He said that not long ago, so good point actually.
Yeah.
Even if I'm a metalhead, it's always good to get other compliments, of other names,
Yeah.
I can't get my crash here, but it's good to get a compliment for grunge band. I'm a grungy person than a crasher.
Really? I like grunge bands as much as the next person, but I'm not really a big kind of 90s grunge, 90s new metal kind of guy.
I do like a background on that, like Nirvana. There's not that many grunge bands that have really materialised nowadays,
I think my tastes from that era is more to do with like the death metal at the time or something.
Yeah.
I tend to, my music taste started more thinking like 80s thrash and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I was a teenager in like the mid 2000s, early 2000s, that's when obviously all the metalcore type stuff was coming out.
Yeah, no, that's just was.
And that's kind of what I got into when I was a teenager.
I was on its feet pretty much, metalcore, hardcore, you know, post hardcore. It was just a way of its.
But you know, obviously you probably know that I like, you know, doom metal and, you know, and stoner stuff and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that really segues from kind of all the progressive stuff that I used to listen to really. So.
Like Mastodon.
Yeah, Mastodon's probably the big one, but you know, from that I kind of went to sludge and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I was never really a massive like Chaos fan in the you know, from the 90s stuff that they were bringing out. I'm a fan of them now, but
yeah,
I wasn't like at the time, you know, that into those bands really.
Yeah.
I would, you know, that taste has maybe developed later on in life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird how your tastes can change because, like,
yeah,
you know, when I did the festival, I put on one like proper power metal band called Ascension.
Yeah, they were good.
And
it was
one of those like things I just took a bit of a punt putting them on type thing. I knew the members from the days when I was at university, but I knew it was like a complete segue in the middle of the festival, completely random choice. You know?
It was just like the ball game.
Yeah, but since putting them on, I've been listening to tons of power metal. So you know, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have said to you I wouldn't have had a clue. Whereas now,
but yeah, they could be a great band. They could be as big as Dragon Force, you know. Like
maybe,
Are they actually from Edinburgh? Where are they actually?
They're from all over Scotland, really, but mainly Aberdeen. But a lot of them live in Edinburgh now.
Do they? Oh, cool. So they can play Edinburgh a bit more then.
And you know, I'm talking to them about putting more shows on.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's a good example of like where, you know, a year ago I couldn't have named you even 5 power metal bands, whereas now like you know, I've been listening to that a lot recently, which is a bit weird to me.
Dragon Force and Hammerfall and you know.
Yeah, you know,
so
there's a lot of really good European. People. I mean, it's a
very
very European-centric sound.
It's a very European thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's no, really enjoying that. There's been a lot of really cool death metal stuff that's come out recently that I've been enjoying. You know, like I'm a bit useless when I haven't got my phone in front of me, but I'll just get some stuff up that I've been listening to.
Yeah. Like
the last Bloodbath album has kind of been a big one for me.
Yeah. Because what's that?
Is it Fallujah? How you say that?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that album.
Fantastic. The tech and
just diving into some of the old classics. Like I've been on a really big kind of Entomb trip recently. Dismember, things like that.
Like Chimera as well.
Chimera.
Yeah.
Is that like as in like the mid 2000s?
Yeah.
Kind of band. Yeah.
They're great.
So
I've listened to a lot of
to me, they were very much part of that kind of wave of bands that I got into when I was a teenager. You know,
because when they
all died off, didn't they? Really, they've all kind of split up.
I know they were great, and they had to go out there. You know, it's a shame. It's a shame about that band because Chimera is so great.
It's a bit, you know, it's a bit like sometimes what you listen to when you're a teenager.
It goes kind of.
You know, it's something of its time, yeah. So I'm not saying I wouldn't have liked Killswitch Engage now, but I was 14 when they came out, you know.
And they were like big with My Curse and that.
Yeah, that was my. Well, I would even say before that, you know, My Curse was probably the kind of middle. No, as far as I know, the middle of their career.
That was quite an early one.
But even the earlier stuff, Alive Through Breathing, End of Heartache, and stuff, all those kind of albums.
The big albums.
You know, those bands were huge back in the day.
Yeah.
They were involved in.
They were from a Valentine as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, like
that's
so all those bands, both My Valentine, Trivium, any of those kind of early 2000s metalcore bands that kind of just seemed to pop out of nowhere, and then were in every other film soundtrack, every other game you could buy.
Because Miller from Valentine was actually the first band that got into metal, you know, back in the early 10s and she got into metal.
Yeah. So like, you know, all those bands, you know, converted absolutely tons of people to the cause, you know.
Yeah.
Very impressionable kind of teenagers. I was that kind of age.
Yeah.
You know, that's something of that time for that age group.
Yeah.
And you know, if those bands came around right now, I mean, they would be converting people of that age or just different fans.
Yeah.
Would I like them now? I'm not saying I wouldn't, but I just, you know, it's probably my tastes have probably gone a bit heavier or a bit more.
Yeah.
A bit more
I feel
mature
like
taste in that.
I feel like Slipknot still has that young fan base for them, even if they're getting old.
Slipknot are a perfect example. I mean, like, you know, when they first came around, they felt kind of fresh, but actually,
yeah,
they were just like, you know, they were absolutely mass market, kind of fed, big merchandise kind of bands, really. And you know, I obviously got into them through things like songs like Left Behind, or Duality, and those kind of songs. But since then, you know, the album they bring out every 2 or 3 years, give or take.
Yeah, because he's doing some style as well, Corey Taylor, and
every time they're converting, you know, millions of teenagers, you know, around the world.
Yeah,
that's how they are the headliners of the future. On, you know, all the download festivals, all the really big festivals. Yeah, so a band like Slipknot is going to be the headliner, isn't it, for
no doubt
for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, they're probably. Yeah. I don't know if they'll still call it a day. I'm not sure if they're going to call it a day, but I'm hoping.
I'm sure they've got years ahead of them.
They're going to have another album. They've got another tour. Hopefully, that's the point. They don't want to call it a day, you know. But you know, it's a good thing bands having their own fans, mixed of fans, old and new, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. Yeah. So, is there anything we want to say? Anything else you want to talk about in the podcast?
Not really. I think just I think the thing I'm always saying to bands are, you know, for me as a promoter, you've got a lot of, you know, big touring bands and big shows and stuff that just generally do well. You know, I've put on touring bands where you announce it and the tickets sell like crazy.
Yeah, like Machine Head in that, for example.
Even smaller than that, you know, to me that's big boy stuff, and that, you know, I'm not saying I will never get a shot at a band like Machine Head. That to me, that's like that's far gone. You know, those bands have been working with the same promoters for 15, 20 years, something. And even smaller than that, I've put on bands that weren't even bands, say 5 years ago. Yeah. And have sold out Opium or have sold out Ivory Blacks in Glasgow, you know, things like that. And I would say that kind of stuff just takes care of itself. You don't have to worry about those bands. Yeah. And what I always encourage people to do is like just take that punt on the local band, or more importantly, if you're in a local band, don't play as many shows as you're probably playing. There's a lot of Edinburgh bands in particular who are guilty of playing the Banshee, I think, like, you know, 5 or 6 times a year.
That's tiny, isn't it?
Which I would say is that like always necessary, playing the same kind of local bills, all the same the same venue.
It's like a duplicate every time you go there.
And then you never see these members of these bands at other shows as well. So you know, I've put on bands in Edinburgh that, you know, 5 or 6 times. Maybe one member of that band turns out to gigs on the regular, or maybe, you know, some of the band members of those bands have never been to another gig that's of their style, you could say.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I always encourage people in bands like to maybe not just like relentlessly playing local shows just for the sake of it, and maybe just get out a bit more, because I would say you are the scene really, especially with the local stuff.
Because that's the whole point, is the local scene is the main thing, because I know we go to a lot of gigs that work with anyway.
Exactly, So I would say to people, if you're in a band, you know, you need to be playing your hometown show more than 2 or 3 times a year. 6 or 7 is certainly too much. And if you're playing the same venue, you know, within the same month twice, you're probably playing it too much. You know, it's probably harming your band rather than
some
making
people do. Some bands do that. Sometimes they do 2 gigs at a month or something. But
if you take a typical gig, there's probably, you know, 20 odd band members at that gig. You know, 4 bands of 5 people, or, you know, 4 people.
They're normally standing.
Imagine if those people went to gigs more, or went to local shows and supported the other bands that are in their scene. For me personally, I feel like I don't see enough of that. I would like to see that happen a bit more than it does.
It's good to see band members come along for their other bands as well.
So
some of them just go away and you know, get back home and that. You know.
Especially if it's for that style of music. I mean, you know, I can't speak for every style of music because I haven't done enough, I don't think. But I've done a lot of stoner rock and doom gigs, Yeah. A lot of the members of the bands that are in Edinburgh or Glasgow that are known for that style, you never see them at other shows apart from their own shows. And I would say, why is that? You know, and that for me would be the if I could solve, you know, if I could fix what I perceive as a problem, that's the one thing I wish I could change.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
Go to more gigs.
Yeah, go to more gigs. Yeah. So I think we're going to round the podcast off. Is that okay for you? It's been really good to get you on, Duncan. It's really appreciated at the time.
Anytime.
So before we finish it off, I hope you have enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, get the bell notifications on, and of course make sure to like the podcast as well, share it out on social media, and in the description boxes the link to our YouTube channel for my gaming stuff and live gig stuff on that as well, so check that out as well. So it's been really good. I hope you have enjoyed another episode of the podcast. We just don't know who's going to be on the podcast next time. It'll be a surprise because I'm not going to, obviously can't announce who's going to be on the podcast. That's the whole point. But we'll see you in the next episode. But could be someone special, could be someone out of the ordinary. You never know.
Somebody's not going to talk about promotions as much as me.
maybe not justice on it. Maybe he'll see it and know that he'll come up.
Matt can talk about running a venue.
Exactly. He'll be the man.
Yes.
Or he can talk about it the exploited and that, and his other band and that, so to get that someone as well.
That's it.
That's the whole point. But thanks again, Duncan.
Yeah, thanks
very much. I'll just get this off. I think we're recording. I think we're finished. Yeah.